Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Leaders Call. So great to see you all. And man, yeah, we do this monthly, and we get to have a lot of fun discussing the topic of the month, going deeper in that, doing some Q&A. And so today, yeah, Heidi, you want to set us up for what we're talking about today?
Yeah, for sure. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today on this month's Leaders Call. We're super excited about the conversation that we're going to have today. My name is Heidi, and it's my privilege to host you all and join in this conversation with Pastor Kelly, who is the lead pastor of Parallel Church. For those of you who are joining us for the very first time, Pastor Kelly's going to do about a 20-minute teaching, and then we're going to open up the conversation for some Q&A. We also have people joining us online through Facebook and YouTube. So if you're part of that online audience and you want to ask a question at the Q&A section, please just type it in the comments and we will see that, and we'll try to get to those as soon as we can. Every month, Parallel Leaders helps you target your leadership under the microscope of 1 of 8 growth points, and it helps optimize your effectiveness as a leader. And this month's conversation is a really good one. We're talking about growing your teams. And today, Pastor Kelly is going to talk about building a high-performance team. So why don't we get into that?
Thank you, Heidi. All right, so yeah, we're talking about how to build a high-performance teams, talking about teams, and I think it's a very relevant topic for the situation where we're at around the world today. I'm talking to lots of business owners and pastors of churches and leaders of nonprofits, and everybody is saying there's a shortage of people available. Staff aren't coming back. Volunteers, every organization that has volunteers are not seeing the same return of volunteers. And so again, there's things that we can do to optimize our effectiveness in finding the right people and picking the right people, training the right people. That's going to, whether they're volunteers or paid staff, is going to make sure that we have what we need in order to keep the organization going. And I think while there might be a crisis around the world, within every crisis is an opportunity. And I think it's an opportunity for organizations that excel at training, recruiting, equipping the people that they have, or finding the right people on their teams can excel. So I want to talk about how to build a high performance team. And again, that starts with recruiting. So number one is you got to recruit the very best. A resource that I'd highly recommend for all of you is a book called The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. And in that book, he talks about 3 qualifications of what would be classified the very best. And he summarizes them this way. He says they need to be humble, they need to be hungry, and they need to be smart. And when I first read that book, I thought, like, that's very simplistic. There's got to be a whole lot more to that than just 3 qualifications that we're looking for in recruiting. And as you go through the book, basically it was remarkable to me to say that this is basically when hiring or recruiting, this is exactly what you're looking for. These 3 qualifications basically cover everything that we need in having the very best on our teams. So again, that's humble, hungry, and smart. He defines humble as ones that are able to, they don't have egos, they don't know best, they're teachable. We'll get through, into some of that as we go on in our teaching today. But basically you want to have somebody that's got some humility and is a team player and can work well with others and is teachable, all those things. He also says you want somebody that's hungry, and we'll talk about that a little bit as we go along as well, but that's somebody that's got some drive, some desire. They're going to put in not just enough to get by. They're going to have some, drive to do above and beyond, and you're looking for people there that are going to be hungry and willingness to do whatever it takes to move the organization, the team forward. And then he defines the other one as smart. And this is not intellectually smart as much as it is relationally smart. You're looking for people that are are able to interact with their teammates, with their bosses, overseers, supervisors, but also willing to and really gifted at communicating with customers and anybody that is that they're working with or for. And so those three criteria are what you would classify the very best. So if you're looking for a great resource, I'd highly recommend the Ideal Team Player. It's also a great resource on how to conduct interviews in regards to these three avenues. And I really liked it as far as what questions to ask in the interview process that kind of identify whether there's humility, or identify whether there's hunger, or identify whether there's the smarts. And so that's a great resource for interviews, but it's also a great resource for evaluation and evaluating the team players that you have and whether they're humble, hungry, and smart. And the ideal team player is the balance of all three. And if you have a team player that is two of the three, they're gonna have some weaknesses that you can then train and equip in, and he gives you resources on that. If they're one of the three, that's somebody you probably want to avoid from hiring, but they're gonna have some weaknesses that you can train and equip in order to make sure that you can get to the ideal team player. So again, that's the ideal team player, Patrick Lencioni, humble, hungry, smart. And so number one is recruit the very best. And what we're looking for is we want to recruit somebody that's humble, hungry, and smart. Secondly, in order to build a high performance team, you need to check their track record. Okay, so secondly, you want to check their track record. We live in a society today that is less less judgmental in some ways, or scared to be judgmental. And even in the church and in Christianity, we say things like we shouldn't judge others. Jesus never told us not to judge. He just told us not to judge people's motives, but he did instruct us to judge people's track record and their behaviors. And it's vital, whether it's a volunteer you're recruiting or whether it's a staff member that you're hiring, that you have to check their track record. So there's a couple ways that you check their track record. Number one is, how do they talk about their previous employers, right? If they're very negative about their previous employers and this was a bad experience, it might be. But if they're negative about every previous employer they ever had, or they run them down quite negatively, chances are you're going to be the next previous employer that they're going to run down in their next job. So if they've got a track record, they're very negative about their previous employers, that's kind of a flag. I'd want to pull into that, investigate that. So, but how do they talk about their previous jobs or previous employers in particular? Secondly, how do their employers talk about them, right? And make sure you follow up and see how their employers talk about them. Get reference checks. Highly recommend. I definitely recommend that you get a reference check before hiring anybody, which seems obvious, but a lot of companies don't do that. Don't check reference checks. And then when they do check reference checks, they have these ambiguous questions, that I don't know are really that effective. Whenever I get calls for somebody looking for a reference check, I'm always listening for one specific question. And that one specific question that I think is the vital question to ask in a reference check is, would you hire this person again if given the chance? Would you, if the person asking or doing the reference check doesn't ask that question, you're missing the big thing. You can ask, what's their strengths? What's their weaknesses? What's this? You get these ambiguous questions, and everyone has a strength, everyone has a weakness, everyone has things they need to improve. But if you don't ask, would you hire this person again? You're not going to get the straight answer, and you're not going to, and when they answer yes I would, why would you hire that person again? Well, like what in particular, they were invaluable to the team, they were so good with the team, they were so good at this, they moved our company forward. You get that. If you get a hesitation or a no, man, that's a major flag as well. So checking their track record. And then when in checking their track record, if there's no integrity or there's a breach of integrity somewhere in their past, there's just a no chance. Because a breach of integrity, if chances are, if they're willing to compromise in integrity at one point, they're most likely going to compromise or be willing to compromise again, and you don't want that on your team. So in building a high performance team, number one, you want to recruit the very best. Number two, you want to check their track record. Number three, you want to look for people who have desire. This is the hungry thing that Patrick Lencioni talks about. You want to look for people who have desire. Desire defined as simply the motivation of life. So you want to have, somebody that, man, they have a desire for life. They have a desire to get up in the morning. They have a desire to make things better and to have this bit of a drive. They have some motivation. And if they lack motivation, there's nothing worse than having to, be a boss who needs a cattle prod in order to get somebody to do something. You want to have somebody that's got some self-initiative and has some desire and has some hunger, as Patrick Lencioni would say, which leads us to number 4 is you want to look for people who are disciplined, look for disciplined people. This is, again, the high performance teams look for people with desire, but they also look for people that are disciplined. And discipline defined is simply the ability to lead yourself. So kind of investigate in their world. Do they have the ability to lead themselves? Do they have the ability to lead? Are they self-disciplined? Are they able to clean up, after themselves? Or the vehicle they drive in a big mess? Is the house they live in always a big mess? Are there kind of, how do they take care of their personal hygiene? All these kind of stuff. If they lack in that way, they lack discipline that way, it's an indication that they will lack discipline on the job and cut corners on the job as well. So you want to kind of pay attention to all those things. And we look at that, well, that's self, that's judgmental. That's not right. No, these are indications, again, of high performance teams have people with desire, have people that are disciplined. They have a strong track record. They're humble, hungry, smart. Number 5, you want to look for people that have a positive attitude. Do they have a positive attitude? There's certain people that, the sky is falling and everything is bad and everything is negative and everything, every circumstance and every situation can be spun in a negative way. There's other people that just have this natural positive spin on life, on circumstances. When trouble comes, they're solution oriented rather than problem focused. So, do they have a positive attitude? And are they just naturally positive in that way? And, questions to ask in an interview process, again, whether it's a volunteer or a staff member, is, hey, tell me a very difficult situation that you've recently gone through and how did you handle it and what did you do? And get them to tell stories themselves. And you'll see in that way that they respond to that, whether their response is they have a positive outlook or whether they're naturally negative. It just gives you indications on how things are going, or ask them how, what do you think of the state of the world, or where things are going right now? What do you think? You're going to get a natural response. It kind of, as whether they're going to see it as negative or as positive. And then in that as well, be very cautious about giving someone a position who wants the title, who cares more about the title they're going to get, the parking stall they're going to get, the sign on the door. If somebody is all about the title rather than the responsibility, then that's kind of a flag for me as well, which kind of that positive attitude and somebody who's focused on the title more than that's an indication. Those are what Patrick Lencioni would call the lack of humility, or this would be a humble flag. These are things where you're going, this person's not really, they're lacking in that humble area and scoring a little bit lower in that way. And it's areas that are about that'll flag. Next is sixthly, what we're looking for in a high performance team is, are they teachable? Okay, again, this is under the humble side of things, but are they teachable? Are they coachable? And one thing that I'd really challenge you to do is, if you hire them, or even in the process of interview, if possible, try to put them in a situation where you can correct them in one way or another, whether it be big or small, but just find a way to correct them and see how they respond. And I've heard it said this way from leadership coaches, is that if you're not able to correct somebody on your team, then you're not able to lead them properly. And if you don't correct them within the first 2 weeks, you probably won't be able to correct them, later on as well. And it's an indication. So it's simple as, hey, could you, set up this room for our meeting, and then let the, set up the room, and they come in and going, hey, I was thinking the table could go this way. And you don't really care which way the table goes. Would the table be able to go this way? Could we have that? Could we change that? And how they respond is going to be an indication of whether they're teachable enough. If you get the huff, like, I guess, or if they're like, yeah, no problem, whatever you need, it's an indication that they're teachable. If you get the huff and the attitude, then it's like, okay, that's an indication, not coachable, not teachable. That's going to be a flag, definitely in the humble category as well. All right, number 7 is evaluate their growth potential. Okay, so evaluate their growth potential. It's very rare that you're going to be able to recruit somebody or hire somebody that is, a 10 out of 10 in the skill department in all areas. They're perfect. And, those people aren't looking for jobs. You're right. Typically they're not the ones that are available. So you don't want to say, well, I'm looking for the 10 out of 10 talent wise. No, you want to evaluate somebody's potential more than their current experience or skill. And I always say this, that when it comes to character and capabilities, I'd hire character over capabilities every single time. And this one, again, if they're coachable, if they're teachable, if they have growth potential, I feel like it's easier to coach and to train somebody in skill than it is to coach and train somebody in character. And so that's something that I'd highly recommend. You want to evaluate, do they have potential? When you evaluate somebody's potential, recognize this, that people cannot stretch outside of their giftings, their natural giftings, but their ability to stretch is endless within their giftings. So if you try to ask somebody to stretch outside of their giftings, you're going to frustrate them, and they'll frustrate you, because they're not able to stretch outside of that gifting. For instance, nobody would want to hire me as an accountant, and you don't want to, that's not within my gifting and my numbers and all the details and all that kind of stuff. That's not my natural gifting. If they try to force me in that, I could probably get by, but I'm going to frustrate them, and they're going to frustrate me. It's not going to be the greatest thing. But you get somebody that you place them in their area of gifting, and they might not be, a 10 out of 10, but maybe they're a 4 out of 10 because they just haven't had the experience or the opportunity. You can find their natural gifting. You'll be able to stretch them endlessly within their gifting. So it's important to find out their personalities, find out their giftings. We use tests that I'd highly recommend. Personality tests like DISC, DISC is a fantastic test, or Myers-Briggs or Enneagram. These are tests that we use. Personality tests. We use other gifting tests like Strengths Finders test, which is great. And these are simple little tests that take the person that you're interviewing or your current staff or volunteers, takes them 10 to 15 minutes to fill out, but it gives you an enormous amount of information as far as the potential or the gifting that you can place somebody in, and going, oh, I'm not going to ask this person to do that. I'm not going to ask, for instance, on an Enneagram, I'm probably not going to ask a 7 to be the finance department. That's probably not going to happen. All right. It's going to be the most fun finance department in the whole organization, but chances of it being detailed enough and getting the result, probably not. Right. So there's just natural giftings. In the finance and accounting, I'm looking for 1s and Enneagram. right? I'm not looking for what that would translate into disc would be, the 7s are most likely the I's, which are all the interpersonal, the people. In accounting, you want to have the C's, right? Those are the ones that are all the details, and are going to be, all about the details and those kind of things. So you're going to want to find, you're probably not going to have somebody be a manager in a department and be really competent and excited, typically, if they're a high S, right? Whereas the D, that they'll probably naturally gravitate more towards those positions than others. So there's personalities that say, okay, how do I discover their giftings and then stretch them, and then evaluate their growth potential, and then give them the opportunity to stretch within their giftings. And the opportunities are endless, and how do we provide the proper training with that? Then we get to number 8, which is assess their ability to produce results. This one is often overlooked by business people and managers and all the rest of it. A lot of times, especially in church world, we don't necessarily evaluate fruit, or we don't necessarily evaluate results, and we go, well, they got a good heart, or they're doing, did they produce upon expectation or above expectation? That's what we're looking for, is somebody that produced beyond expectations and got results. Leaders, which is what we all want to strive to be and train and recruit and have on our teams. Leaders naturally produce results. They will just go into a place and they'll just produce results, and they'll bear fruit. So are they producing to expectation, below expectation, above expectation in their previous jobs? Did they produce results in their in their current previous volunteering or positions? Are they getting results? Is things happening or not things happening? Evaluate. You want to pay attention to results, and you want to evaluate, that's a great evaluation of their talent. And if they're not producing results, why not? Were they in the wrong fit? Maybe you've got a better fit that they'll produce results in that one. Or, when did they last? You can even ask them, when did they last produce results? Where did they feel the most successful? Where did they see results? And it reveals where their talent is, their ability, and their strengths. So people will typically produce results in the area of their strength. And again, when it comes to the Bible and to Jesus was, he recruited the team. He was expecting results. In fact, John 15, he says, if you don't produce results, we cut you off, right? And he called the in the parable of the talents, he called the servant that didn't produce results, just maintained, didn't even lose, just maintained. He called that wicked and lazy. So there is a high expectation for results, and we're looking for that as well on our team. Next one, number 9, is do they add value to the team? Okay, in other words, are they a team player? Do they add value to the team? There's people that you will hire or recruit who will add value to you as the supervisor, or who will add value to the organization, but not necessarily add value to the team, and not necessarily make the team better. Again, because Carol loves it so much, I'll have to use a sports analogy. But there are players. There's a debate, and I always bring this one up, but it's the constant current debate that's regular in basketball. Who's the greatest of all time, LeBron James or Michael Jordan? To me, it's a no contest. Having watched both of them play, to me, it's a no contest. It's Michael Jordan without a doubt. But the biggest differentiating factor between the two is not talent or natural ability. The biggest differentiator between the two is they added value to the team. Michael Jordan made everybody, his number one thing, everybody around him better. LeBron James probably has more natural talent, but hasn't won as many championships because it's all about him. And when he wears out, the team doesn't get necessarily better. And so there's a difference between somebody who can add value to their leader, to all the rest of it. Do they add value to the people that they're working with? And this again comes to what Patrick Lencioni calls smart. right? This is part of the, they're going to make everybody around them better. That's how we get the best team. Then next one is, are they captivated by the same vision? Are they captivated by the same vision? Two visions is a division. And oftentimes, in our interview process, we don't talk about the vision so much as, or we don't listen to them who we're interviewing. We don't listen to them talk about the vision. And if you just get them to talk about, hey, what do you think this company stands for? What this church, about? What do you see? And let them talk about the vision. See if, number one, if they get it. See, number two, if they're fired up about it. If they're just like ho hum, yeah, I got some great ideas too, and I think we better if we do this. If we have no problem with people adding to how we do things and making how we do things, but our why is a non-negotiable. Why we exist and what our vision's all about, that's a non-negotiable. And we're not looking for multiple visions. And there's some people who just aren't captivated. They're crazy talented. They get along well with everybody else. It's all the rest of it, but they're not captivated by the same vision. If they're not captivated by the same vision, they're going to lack hunger. They're not going to have the drive to go out and do that. In fact, they'll probably create division, and they'll create confusion when they get with other team, because they're just going to be not as passionate about the vision as they should be, which again affect the people that they work with and eventually affects results. And then finally, the last one in having a high performance team is, do they raise up other leaders? Again, this is adding value to the team. But basically, this is saying, are they servant-hearted? And you could tie this one in with, if they're more concerned about the title, chances are they're not servant-hearted. If they're concerned about, are they more concerned about themselves, their own promotion, they're probably not servant-hearted. But you want to have people on the team, even as volunteers. You want to have people that are caring more about people, making other people better, serving people. Aren't about everybody serving them in their needs. They're going to be serving people, raising up other people, training other people to do what they do. These are servant-hearted people that become invaluable to the team and just make everybody, basically to them, it's the cause is more important than them individually and what they need. So again, going through this list is, if those of you are taking notes, is how to build a high performance team, is recruit the very best, number one. Number two, check the track record. Number three, look for people who have desire. Fourthly, look for disciplined people. Number five, do they have the positive attitude? Number six, are they teachable? Number seven, evaluate their growth potential. Number eight, assess their ability to produce results. Number nine, do they add value to the team? 10, are they captivated by the same vision? And 11, do they raise up other leaders as well? So there we go. And we can open it up now for questions. I'll turn it over to you, Heidi. You can lead us in the next part.
Excellent. That was so good, especially with buzzwords out there like that both employers and volunteer leaders are dealing with, like the great resignation and quiet quitting. It's so important to build into your teams. So now, gentlemen and ladies, it's your turn to guide the conversation. We've got a few minutes left to comment, get clarity on something that Kelly said, or to go into more detail on something. Now, I noticed here that Tim has a question. So Tim, I'm going to let you take it. Good to go.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for that, Pastor Kelly. Very good. My question is, how much time do you give the people that you're training or bringing onto team? How much time do you give them to grow before moving them on and realizing they're not a good fit?
Typically, I recommend everybody do whatever you hire, bringing a new hire or a new volunteer, is to do an evaluation at the 3-month period. And that evaluation is not just evaluating them, but having them evaluate you. And that's a great time because they get their feet wet, they get understanding, they get working with people beside them, and then you can ask them, hey, what's your observations of the team? What are your observations of the organization? Where do you think we could get better? And then, do you have the tools that you need? And these kind of questions, and then ask them, things, you evaluate them, where they're at, what their contribution is. So again, at the 3-month part is a great one for that evaluation. Recommend everybody everybody do that. Even with volunteers, do that. Because, if we don't evaluate, sometimes people sit in silence and suffer over stuff that we could easily avoid or talk about or get through. And then, like I would say in a management position or the higher up you go in an organization, the longer that time of proper evaluation would be. The bigger the organization, the higher the level. There's certain positions that would probably take about a year to get a proper evaluation or understanding of all those kind of things, but no more than a year. And I would say no shorter than 3 months.
Did that answer your question, Tim? I'm assuming yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim. That was a great question. Just a reminder, too, to those that are watching online, if you would like to ask a question, you can just comment and we'll be able to add that to the queue here. Does anybody else have any questions that they would like to ask today?
Oh, Jen,
hang on, Jen. Okay, I got you. You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay. I have 2 questions. When it comes to leading from the middle, so people that would be listening that are maybe leading from not necessarily the position of, not that it's their job to recruit, but they're in a chair that's not exactly the one that would be hiring or like leading a department, how can they help support the building of a team in this regard?
Fantastic question. I think, again, with leading from the middle, again, leadership is all about influence. And so we make the mistake oftentimes of saying, well, I can't lead because I'm not the boss. John Maxwell, made it very, very clear years and years ago. And I still think we make this mistake oftentimes. Well, I can't lead, or I can't do that. I can't make these decisions. I can't change anything because I'm not the boss. I don't have the position. Leadership is influence. And if leadership is influence, we have the ability to lead from whatever position in the organization we're in. So my recommendation would be the best way is to model humble, hungry, smart, to do a self-evaluation of yourself and going, okay, in these 3 areas of humble, hungry, smart, which one do I need to grow in the most, and which ones, which are my strengths and which one is my weakness? And then how do I model that more effectively for the teams? And then making sure that you're a champion of the vision and the expectation of the person that you're working for or reporting to, that you're championing the vision and the cause and being servant-hearted and raising up other people and doing whatever you possibly can to help them succeed is going to help that team succeed. And a lot of times I think our insecurity kind of jumps out. We're going, well, if I help my coworkers succeed, then they're going to look good and I'm not. But I promise you, any leader worth their salt or any supervisor worth their salt is going to pay more attention to the employer or employee that is helping others get better than is necessarily trying to step over it. That person becomes invaluable and is probably up for promotion, in my mind anyway, should be up for promotion more quickly because they're invaluable. They're making others better. They should be in a leadership position then to do that. So that would be a couple of my recommendations that come to mind.
Am I still unmuted? Yeah. Okay. So second question is, if you have a leader who started out really strong in all 3 areas, but you're starting to see a regression happening in one of the areas, what does the coaching conversation look like to kind of help them reevaluate that or acknowledge that to help them get them back on track?
To talk with your leader about, or for a leader to talk to their employee? For an employee to talk to the employer?
No, for the leader to talk to their employee or their leader.
Yeah, you want to set up, if possible, a regular evaluation, or if you don't have regular evaluation, regular one-on-ones with, depending on the size of your organization, if it's possible, definitely regular one-on-ones with your direct reports. And I don't know, I would bring it up, maybe have them read the book, Ideal Team Player, then have them do the self-evaluation, have the conversation with them about this and saying, hey, what do you see? What do you not see? What I love about the ideal team player is, and we did this with our staff a number of years ago, but had people read the book, and then we did the self-evaluation, and then we had the conversations. And then it's interesting is he lists in that book, the type of person or type of employee, somebody that's 2 out of 3 or has a weakness in humble. They look like this, and they're this person. It's like, ooh. And as soon as he gives a title to that, it's almost like, well, that's that person. And then he listens to, ooh, that's that person. Oh, that one's me. And it opens up the dialogue to be able to have the conversation saying, okay, so how do we help you, regain your hunger? I see you slipping in this. How do we help you, be more people smarter, or work on your people skills and get along with your team? And how do we help you, get, some humility? We have to, that one is a different one to have a conversation with, but yeah, but it's basically, it opens up the dialogue to be able to say, let's talk about it. And I want to help you grow in this area.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we had 2 questions actually come from our online audience, and the first one is from Dale Aceron. It's a very long one, so I'm not actually going to post it on the screen, but he says that, Kelly, you had the comment about asking a person to do a job, but then that person's huffs about it or their attitude isn't ideal. But what if that person actually had a good suggestion? When do you, as a leader, give a level of autonomy to those who you lead, so that they feel as though they are part of the team, as well as their input?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And hey, Dale, good to see you. That's a fantastic question. And again, in the analogy that I used, that was something where you want to see if they're evaluating, if they're teachable or if they're coachable. And that one is within 2-week period of time of them either, being hired or having just been hired. And so that's a place where the contribution, we're just trying to evaluate attitudes and all of that. So we always, as leaders, we always want to be listening and open to conversations. And the easier that conversation happens is when we are crystal clear on what is up for suggestion, what is up for negotiation, and what is not. So I made a statement also before that, hey, the vision is not up for negotiation. And so that's not something that we're going to have a conversation with, all the time, or, if we have that, we're going to have permission to go into that one. We're not going to discuss, why we exist. That's not a conversation we're going to have at that level, but we will discuss this and lay out, hey, we want to have discussion on how we do things and can we make it better? And let's evaluate what we're currently doing. And so I would say the clearer we are as leaders with the people that work with us as to what we can discuss and what is on the table to discuss and what is not on the table, the better. And then also be clear as to, when we challenge the process and not challenge the process, which is, another teaching that I've regularly done with our team, is saying, okay, we challenge in private, we're public raving fans, public, or private, honest critics sometimes saying, hey, I think we could be doing this, but we're not going to have that criticism in a public forum. In a way, we're not going to do it behind the backs. We're going to do it in person, one-on-one. And that's a-okay. And so we have clear lines as to the wins. And then also set up, I would say, as a leader, always set up a time, like a regular meeting, where it's very clear that we are open for discussion, that we want to make things better, that we're evaluating our current, situations. And then sometimes I find it as a leader, oftentimes I have to probe a little bit more out of our people to be able to speak up with honest things, because they're more reluctant than over reluctant to do that. So just kind of pull on that. And there's times, Heidi can attest to this, there's times where in meetings, somebody's quiet and I will call them out by name and saying, Heidi, what do you think about that? What are you thinking about? What do you see here? And then if they've got nothing, they've got nothing. But oftentimes, more often than not, there's something there that can really contribute. So I think we have to create clarity in the boundaries that we allow discussion when it is. And if somebody's on the team and I've hired you, I want your input. and provide ways to do that.
Excellent. I hope that helped answer your question, Dale. You can respond if you have any further or need further clarification, but I know that also Pamela asked this question. She asked, what would be some examples of breach of integrity?
Yeah, there's so many. Integrity is if there's a different behavior in private than there is in public, that's a breach of integrity. So if somebody is willing to cut corners, and breach of integrity can be, moral failures, it can be emotional failures, it can be a number of different things where there's just lack of transparency. There can be just saying one thing, doing another. There can be, financial breaches of integrity. There can be, I don't know. There's so many different ways. It just, if there's something that, like lying and any of those, breach of integrity. I'm not talking about making a mistake. That's not a breach of integrity. I'm not talking about, trying hard at something and do something. I'm saying that your yes is yes, your no is no. What you say is the truth. You're not saying one thing to somebody's face and then saying something else behind the scenes. You're not cutting corners to make yourself look good, whether that be financially, morally, ethically, whatever that might be. Those are things. If somebody's willing to cheat somewhere, they're probably going to cheat here too. So yeah, if they're willing to financially have a lack of integrity, they're probably going to be financial lack of integrity here. So that's what I'm kind of looking for. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, it looks
Great
like
question.
it did. Yeah. Joylyn has a question for you. Go ahead, Joylyn. Oh, you are unmuted.
Good.
There you go. Yep.
Okay. When you talk about checking with previous employers and stuff, how much does the culture play into it? Because I know that what you're saying with talking to them, your integrity, and you're looking for if they would hire them back or not, and why. How much do you figure in who those bosses, how that organization runs if it's completely different than ours?
That is a fantastic question. And I think it's important as an employer, if you're looking for references, to reference the company that they came from as well. So if there are situations where you're going, okay, the culture of that company is much different than ours, the expectation of those bosses or owners are much different than ours, then there's certain, I'm going to tailor my questions a little bit differently because I know their culture is different. I know their outcomes, their expectations are different. And so, I'm not going to ask questions. Did they meet your expectations? No, they did not. They were terrible. If their expectations are opposite or their culture is quite different than ours, those questions are irrelevant. I'm going to ask other questions. How did they work with others? How did they challenge the process if they disagreed? What did they, did they honor you? Did they honor the people around you? Did they, there's different questions that I think are character questions that regardless of cultures should be transferable from one organization to another. And if there's different practices or different expectations, I will weigh in on multiple references rather than just on one, because I know that one could be skewed, right? Sometimes employees get a bad reference because the boss is bad, not because the employee is bad, right? So I want to hear from multiple from multiple sources to be able to see if there's consistency, if there's not consistency. Yeah, I mean, and sometimes when people talk about their employers badly, it's because they had a bad experience. That's good. But if they talk about every employer as bad, they've never had work for a good employer, chances are I'm going to be the next not good one. So there's, you have to weigh in all of that, pay attention to the culture, but also study, the references as much as you're studying the person that you're hiring to see if there's a fit.
Excellent. I hope that answered your question, Joylyn. Yeah. Okay, I think we, unless something comes in online, I've spoken with the team that are in the call with us, and we do not have any more questions. Pastor Kelly, it was a great conversation. Do you want to wrap this up then?
Yeah, no, I'm cheering you all on, and you know we're in a season. Don't feel like you're alone in this season, and that you're not leading right because you're lacking volunteers or finding the right employees or keeping the right employees. We're in, and Heidi referenced it. You can do a lot of research on the quietly quitting culture is what the media is calling it now, or the great resignation is another thing that you can Google any of that stuff and see that this is a worldwide phenomenon that we're in right now. But with that problem comes many opportunities, and people are quitting to something. Like, they're not just quitting life, they're quitting to something. And so I think this is an opportunity for us as leaders to say, okay, we're going to sharpen our skills, we're going to get better at the volunteers that we lead, at the staff that we recruit and train, and we're going to rise above this storm, and cheering you all on, and continue to learn and grow like all of us are, in order to get better.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for taking your time out of your busy schedules to join us today, and we hope this conversation was helpful to you. We'll see you next time.